Welcome to Downshift. My name is Matt, and thanks to my friends at International BMW, I'm here with the very brand new BMW X3. This one specifically is in M50, guys, and it kind of, at least in last generation, I kind of considered it to be the segment benchmark against things like an Audi SQ5 and a Mercedes GLC43. So what I'm going to do is take you around the car, show you the best and the rest, and see if it keeps that crown. Let's get into it. The first thing we're going to talk about on the con side of the video, and really one of the only major things, is less of even a comment about this car or the base X3. It's kind of more about the X3 lineup overall, at least here in the States. We don't have the plug-in hybrid X3 that you get overseas. We don't have the iX3 that you get overseas, at least not now. Meanwhile, Mercedes brings their GLC43 to the States. Now, all of the powertrains that you get here, both the 4-cylinder and the 6-cylinder that you have here, are mild hybrids. But I do know that some of those other powertrains exist in other markets, so it's just a little bit of a bummer that we don't get them here in the States. Options are always good. There's a butt for every seat, so I would like to see BMW bring those. But that being said, there's nothing negative that I have to say about the powertrains that they do have here in the lineup currently here in North America, and we'll talk about that on the positive side of the video. And then just as a small nitpick, there just seems like a couple little areas within the cabin that seems maybe a little evident of cost cutting. Like, for one, the door handles, the door pulls are no longer metal, they are plastic, and the actual buttons and details next to the door handle control your fan speed and your lock and unlock, and that piece is a piece of black plastic, and it does move as you interact with it, which just kind of gives it a sense of feeling maybe a little bit cheap. And then in the back seats, well, I should say in the front seats, you have this really cool ambient light interaction bar, whatever BMW calls it, but it doesn't continue into the back seat, so it is pretty dark back there. And the last thing is, in the cup holder here, just about everyone has one of these or some larger water bottle. And these cup holders fit larger water bottles, but the bottom of the cup holder is humped and domed, so the bottle doesn't actually fit flush onto the floor, onto the ground. It might be nice for soda cans and things like that, but for most normal water bottles with a flat bottom, you're going to get some of this, which will rattle around when you're driving hard in your M50. But there's a lot of great things going on with this new X3, so let's talk about those. Like, first and foremost, how could we not talk about the B58 or the engine powertrain configurations that you get under the hood of the X3 here? Now, under the hood of the M50 that we have here, we get a familiar face, the B58 3-liter inline-6 turbocharged engine with a 48-volt mild hybrid. But several things have been revised for this year, like the crankshaft and the turbos and the 48-volt mild hybrid system. And what it results in is 393 horsepower, that's up 11, and 428 pound-feet of torque, that's up 59 pound-feet. And on top of more power, you also get more fuel efficiency, 27 mpg combined rating, that's up 4 mpg in combined driving, so significant gains all around. 0 to 60, you're looking about 4.4, that's about the same. But to put things in context against things like the GLC43, the GLC is going to claim more horsepower, but I really doubt it when you get these things into the real world. Plus, it's that silly, overly complicated hybrid 4-cylinder thing. But let's say you don't need the big power B58. You can get the 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, the B48, making 255 horsepower, that's up 7 from last year, and 295 pound-feet of torque, that's up 40 pound-feet once again. And combined MPG is 29 mpg, that's up 5 from last year. We've consistently said over the last 1, 2, 3, maybe even 5 years that no one is really touching BMW's powertrains in terms of efficiency and how it generates power. And this year, they've improved somehow on the benchmark. So really well done under the hood of the new X3. And then in terms of the driving experience, I mean, it's classic clinical BMW. The drivetrain is stupendous in tandem with the powertrain. You get the ZF 8-speed transmission here, really sharp, but also really smooth when you want to back off. xDrive standard on all X3s. That's awesome. You love to see that. The car for this year, this new generation, is only about 100 pounds heavier than it was last year, and it's about an inch longer, which, you know, we'll talk about in the back seats and in the trunk. You also get the adaptive suspension standard on the M50 here. That's something that I know Paulo will like to hear. That's something that I would have liked for my M340i. So that's really, really nice. Of course, you get the M Sport differential out back, managing all your torque and horsepower. And when it comes together as something that just feels really, really dynamic and sharp and on it. I don't get a lot from the steering. It's pretty light, it's pretty numb, but I do have the boost paddle here. I have power whenever I want it. And it sounds pretty decent too. Of course, it's being like amplified a little bit through the speakers, but I think that's probably okay. Everyone's doing that, and it adds a little bit of drama to the experience. But the thing that really stands out to me is when you relax the car back, you just daily drive it, and you can enjoy the ride. Again, the adaptive suspension is standard on the M50 cars here, and they've retuned the damping to allow for more rebound and more travel, so the range and difference that you get between drive modes, even within the M50 here, is noticeably different. In Sport and Sport Plus, of course, you get that typical really buttoned down, really firm, really disciplined chassis balance, and then when you flip back into Comfort, the suspension really softens off a lot more than it did last year in the M40i. And it's very, very welcome. The overall cabin experience, again, it's very refined. I do feel like the dash is nice and low, so my frontward visibility is really good. My side visibility is great. Even out the back, I can see everything. It feels nice. It feels really spacious up front here. It's good behind the wheel on both the sporty and daily side. And when it comes to styling, of course, everyone is subject to their own opinion, but my opinion is, I think it looks pretty handsome. It does look a little bit more X1 influenced than it has in the past, and it has that under grille black chin thing that we saw on the X5 and X6 for their mid-cycle refresh, or LCI. But the grille is reworked, it's mostly closed, but it does light up surrounding the kidneys, as we've come to expect from really a lot of cars these days. And of course, you've got your M logo in there for your M50. And you have the new interpretation of the angel eyes, which I kind of like. You've got a hood nose flare like you would see from an M car, and your lower front bumper kind of continues the design. The profile is pretty familiar in terms of its shape. The rear half is giving a little bit of XM vibes. It does feel kind of slab-sided, but in a cool way where you don't have some cladding over the wheel arches. And then speaking of wheel arches, you have new wheel options. You can get brakes finished in blue or red, depending on what you want for your spec. And up above, you have the Hofmeister kink in classic BMW fashion and the tab door handles that we're so familiar with now. You do get M wing mirrors here on the M50, but the rear end is really cleaned up like the front end. And you've got the Energy Sword taillights, those are back. And for the first time on a non-M car, we see quad tips here for the M50, though there will be no exposed exhaust for the base 30. And I have to say, in midday sunlight like this, the Vegas red looks really dynamic and really shimmery and pretty cool. Leave it down in the comments what color you'd have your X3 M50 in. And they haven't just improved the powertrains and the performance for this year, they've also added some practicality. Your trunk here is powered and hands-free as standard, as you might expect from a luxury moniker like BMW. With the rear seats up, you're looking at 31 cubic feet of space, and with the rear seats down, you're looking at 67 cubic feet. That's 4 more cubic feet than you got last year. And more importantly, it's more than you'll get in the GLC. This makes it one of the largest in the class then. You don't really have much underfloor storage, but you have some netted bins and some hooks, and overall it comes together to be incredibly practical, and again, one of the biggest in the segment. What's not to love? And in terms of the overall cabin experience, it's very BMW. You get plenty of luxuries starting with these seats. They're comfortable. They're well bolstered on my sides, but not overly so where I feel pinched. They're heated, they're cooled. We have the Veganza leather as standard with the M stitching detail. Some of the Alcantara. It's really, really nice. You can upgrade to the full merino interior if you'd like, but again, the seats are heated, they're cooled. You've got 2-level memory up here. Your steering wheel, of course, that's heated. And then the cabin design as a whole. Super minimal dash design for this year. Your door cards do have kind of the fangs when you open the door. That's where your air vent controls are. For some reason, they're on the door. Interesting. We've talked about that a little bit already. But next to it, the new M steering wheel is here, and it looks and feels awesome. It feels a little light, as we talked about, but it looks really cool. There's a lot of visual drama here, and it makes it feel a little bit more special. The climate, of course, is in the screen, but it's always kind of at that lower banner, so everything's pretty easy to get to. But your dash, it doesn't have a lot of detail or texturing or accenting going on, but you do have some stitching details, and of course you've got the ambient light. That's the interaction bar, whatever they call it, and that has a lot of visual drama, especially as the sun starts to come down. So overall, it definitely still feels like a BMW interior, and there's little details and accents throughout the cabin that make it feel special, especially if you're getting in the M50. And the rear seats here, definitely on the pro side of the video. In terms of knee room and headroom, I do have pretty decent space back here, pretty similar to the old X3 or previous generation last year's. The seats don't recline, they don't slide or anything, but you do have a heated option for your outboard seats, and you can get a 3-zone climate option. You get chargers, you get vents, you get pockets, you get that iPad mount in the back of the front seats, and you do get the full glass panoramic roof, though it doesn't open, but still brings some light into this otherwise black cabin. In terms of size, this is going to be pretty similar to the GLC, but it's not like it's impractical. You can see how much knee room and headroom I have. Plus, all the nice materials, the leather from the front continues back here, some of the Alcantara and some of the contrasted M stitching. So some of the personality still continues to the back seats. The only thing that doesn't continue to the back seats is the ambient light, as we talked about earlier. And when it comes to towing, I'm actually really impressed with what you get here. As base, you're gonna get 4,000 pounds of towing, but if you go for the M50 with the straight 6 that we have here, that goes up to 4,850 pounds of max towing capacity. Compare that to the GLC43, which maxes out at 3,500. So even the base 4-cylinder here is towing more than the Mercedes. And of course, this is a modern, new generation BMW. So in terms of the tech suite, you got everything that you could possibly want, and then some things you didn't even know you needed. You do have a full color head-up display, which shows you a load of different things, and your software is running the iDrive 9, which is an Android-based system. It's newly updated, but the graphics look fantastic. You've got a fully digital instrument cluster, which again has seemingly endless customizability, and then your center screen has pretty much anything that you could want in it. Wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto, all of the usual stuff that we love about this system. 360 cameras with the reverse assist and the augmented reality view. Of course, wireless charging pads, but they don't have the seatbelt thing that I liked from the X1. So if you're going to accelerate hard, just be careful with your phone. But in terms of your safety suite, you can get the Drive Pilot Pro, but not the full hands-free driving. We did have that hands-free driving in the i7 and some of the higher-end BMWs, and it's a fabulous system, but still, what you get here is really impressive and definitely class competitive for the segment, and plus, you get things like the Air console, so you can play games through your head unit and your phone. You've got loads and loads of customizability, toys, apps, and full customizability of your screen, so you can tailor it to exactly what you want to see or not see. And lastly, in terms of price, happy to say, the X3 for the new generation here starts at under $50,000, $49,500. If you go for the M50 here, you're going to start at $64,100. Again, that's for all-wheel drive, for all that extra horsepower, all that extra torque, and all that extra fuel efficiency for this year. That's pretty impressive, especially when you consider that the 4-cylinder hybrid AMG GLC43 thing starts at another $4,000 more than the M50 here at $68K. And again, 4 cylinders versus straight 6. It's an easy choice. X3 M50. Oh my God. It's just classic B58 stuff. But it does feel more powerful. I definitely feel that extra 60 pound-feet of torque shifts. You don't get the crack. It's not like a DCT from the ZF. But what it does do is it smooths out gear changes to the point where you almost don't feel them, but mostly in comfort mode, which is pretty welcome. Boost mode. Oh God. Jeez. This thing will happily take itself way up into the rev limiter. I love BMW for that. And obviously we know this B58 engine and what they've done to it, turbo adjustments, crankshaft adjustments, a couple other things, and then the 48-volt system has been seemingly robustified, which is definitely not a word, but it does feel quick. I'm really impressed with the new performance that you get here. I'm really, really impressed with the ride, the difference and the change that you get between the drive modes. In sport here, it's sharp, it's dynamic, the steering hefts up a bit, but when you flip it back into comfort mode, let's go to expressive perhaps, it really kind of just relaxes. The suspension softens off a bit. We're gonna go to true comfort actually, or personal. But there's a big change in the ride comfort and the daily usability and refinement that you get. It doesn't feel as crashy or harsh over medium to smaller size road imperfections. Of course, the bigger ones you're still gonna feel, obviously. But the adaptive suspension as standard here, huge, huge help. I do like some of the visual drama that you get up here. You're not gonna get it in the back seat, but up here, I'm a sucker for ambient light, and BMW with their interaction bar, or whatever they're calling it, is really cool. It does feel pretty special, especially as you change in between modes. There's different colors that go on all the time. The big pano roof is nice to bring in some light, because otherwise the cabin is very, very black. So I do like some of that accenting here. Sport boost. Oh my God. Woo! It's quick, man. Look, I mean, I'm obviously not around a track. We're not really testing the car dynamically, laterally, and through corners much. These are pretty broken roads here in West Dallas, but this does serve as a pretty good benchmark in terms of raw engine performance and how it's going to deal with some of these road imperfections on like actual city and suburb streets. And I have to say I'm impressed. I'm impressed on pretty much every front. There's a couple small little things. We talked about the door handles being plastic and blah, blah, blah. But overall, I'm pretty impressed with this thing, so let's take it to the final thoughts. So that is the best and the rest of the brand new X3 M50. And I have to say, just about everywhere is an improvement over the last generation. The ride is better, the efficiency is better, the power is better, the interior, better. So thanks to my friends at International BMW for letting me have a go and checking out the new X3. Thank you to you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.